So, if you were to have seen my video about Season 1 of Amphibia, which I recommend checking out before diving into this one, since 1, we'll be going over similar points to what I've discussed in that video, and 2, so you can understand why I feel the way I do between the 2 seasons of the show. I know people love Season 1 of Amphibia, and I can understand why and respect that they do despite what I say, but to me, I just can't seem to get over the problems I have with it, which may be why I just love Season 2 of the show so much. Season 2 of Amphibia to me felt like such an improvement from what I expected from the show. Everything from the characters, to the world, to the story, just felt like it really got to shine. Almost to the point that Season 2 feels like a completely different show when compared to Season 1. So in this video, we'll be going over why I love Season 2 more than the first, why I think it was such a great improvement, and overall, changed the show for the better. Now, needless to say, since we're now in the midpoint of the show, but spoilers for both Season 1 and Season 2 of Amphibia from here on out. You have been warned. So, let's get right into why I think Amphibia Season 2 redeemed the series. The biggest criticism that I have with Season 1 was that I really felt like what exactly was going on didn't matter too much for the overarching story that it had. Sure, a lot of the stories that they had in between of the major plot points were fun, but after a while, they kinda just drag on and make you ask, where's the story again? Especially with how it felt really limited in its world, since it all takes place in this small farm town. In the intro, you give us this whole new world for us to be interested in seeing, and with how they locked us into Wartwood for a whole season, it really just felt like we were expecting more. However, that completely changes at the start of Season 2. We're immediately told that our new goal is the journey to a grand city so we can find more information on how Anne can get back home. So, that one place that we had an entire season of messing around not doing much to actually advance the story, completely left behind as we journey into this new chapter of the show. Even though the first few episodes after this are essentially the same, it still feels satisfying to the plot since it's already been established that we're inching our way to our destination, which really is what makes the season feel a lot stronger than the last. No matter what the characters are doing, it feels like there's a sense of direction, a sense of effort to reach what our characters need or want on their journey as we go through it with them. Another thing that really made me love this season was the addition of Marcy, the final one of the 3 girls that came to Amphibia through opening the music box. She was the one that got us familiar with this new world in Utopia and gave us a great dynamic with her and Anne as they show what their friendship was like back home, and that only gets stronger as Sasha comes into the picture. The show remembered that they had 3 friends with a dynamic and they finally did something with it. She was also our medium to have a more meaningful understanding of what we could encounter on our journey, like the language, the history, how they could move forward. Through all these actions and motivations, Marcy really started to be the heart of the show as the season went on, and I really enjoyed that, which is probably why it made it all the more painful to see how she ends up towards the season's finale. Oh, we'll get into that soon enough. It also felt like our characters are actually gaining a form of growth as the season went on, the biggest example being the ending to Hopping Mall. This scene involves a real heart-to-heart with Sprig and Anne about their friendship, and you know what, I'm just gonna let the scene speak for itself.
It's so pretty. I'm sure your mom's gonna love it.
Yeah.
What's she like?
My mom? Kind. In her own way. But strict, too. She wanted me to study more. Thought I goofed off too much. We didn't always see eye to eye. She annoyed me sometimes, too. Like, in the kitchen, she'd always sing these goofy Thai love songs, and man, was her singing bad. Woof. That woman was beyond tone deaf. You know, the funny thing is, right now, I would give anything just to hear her singing. Whoa! Sorry, I just, need a moment.
It's cool you know your mom, though. Mine passed away when me and Polly were really young. I don't even remember what she looked like, really, much less the sound of her voice. You know, I've always wondered, can you miss someone you never actually knew? That's silly. I mean, of course you can't.
This is the first time that we hear Anne openly talk about her parents and just how much she misses her old life back on Earth. She brings this up now because she's become close enough to someone to be comfortable to be talking about something like that. But Sprig realizes this at the sight that Anne was tearing up while talking about it. So as a way to make Anne more comfortable in telling him about her parents, Sprig also begins to open up and tells Anne about his parents, the fact that he didn't really know them. Anne begins to look at Sprig the same way he looked at her when she was talking about her parents just like him. So when Sprig starts to shrug off the fact that he didn't know his parents, Anne hugs him. Anne already felt pain enough from being away from her parents for a few months, so to hear that Sprig hasn't known his parents for who knows how long, she hates the thought of him going through a feeling like that alone. In response to Anne's kindness, Sprig starts to cry, because not only has he found someone that's willing to listen and understand his pain, but that someone outside of his family was willing to comfort him. Then there's another moment like the ending to After the Rain, where we see Anne finally learn the truth that Hop-Up had been lying to her about the box, and fueled by her initial feeling of betrayal, she is determined to leave and be on her own. But Hop-Up actually reveals to Anne why he hid the box in the first place, because of the thought of it putting his family in danger. But it's also in this moment of revelation that Hop-Up comes to understand that through her time in this world and living in their home, Anne has become a part of his family. For the few moments of the first season that actually matter to the overarching story, we see that when Anne first came into their home, Hop-Hop wasn't exactly friendly with her when she was first settling in. But through that time with Hop-Hop taking care of her, Anne has seen him eventually warm up to her, and see how much family actually matters to him. So when she learns that the reason he hid the box and lied to Anne, she sees that he really did do it out of love of his family. And when she sees that Hop-Hop is broken at the sight of laying her down because now he sees her as family, Anne forgives him, because she sees that him revealing his past intentions of family and regret, Anne's willing to take him back because she sees that Hop-Hop does genuinely care about Anne now as if she was his own. It's moments like these that I really think should have been in season 1 more, because sure, we see how much of a good time our characters have had together, but we don't really see them grow from that time together too much. So that's probably why I found these moments in season 2 a lot more impactful, because in these moments, it felt like that not just for the sake of the episodic plots, but for the sake of the show moving forward, Anne and Sprig actually grew as friends. The Planters and Anne actually grew closer as a family, and with them, the show grew too. The fact that they put a lot of these moments of growth and emotions between the major plot threads of the season, along with the introduction of all these new locations, just makes me appreciate the pacing a bit more, and overall made the journey of going through the show a lot more interesting and meaningful. It still kinda hurts to go back and think of how little they did with Sasha in the show's first season. It felt like just a missed opportunity to not have half of the season be dedicated to Sasha's side of the story so we can actually see the contrast between the characters, and how their viewpoints may change by the end of the season, which makes me glad with what they did to Sasha in season 2 to have her be a more impactful and interesting character. The impact of the events from season 1 do still carry on her arc, as we initially see that Sasha still has the drive to play an antagonist role for the show, as she's shown to still be determined to serve Grime and take control over the people of Amphibia. However, what they did for the season to make her different and more compelling is that they gave her a personal dilemma. The first episode of the season where we see Sasha shows that she's overly dedicated to her training, claiming to Grime that it's simply a way to grow stronger. But as Grime slowly starts to come out of his slump, he lays out the real reason for her training.
Oh, please! You're not upset because you lost the fight! You're upset because you lost your friend! You're upset that Anne stood up to you, and that things between you will never be the same again.
You don't know what you're talking about!
Sasha, look out!
We see from Sasha's expressions and reactions to what Grime is saying that it really is the truth, and at the moment that it appeared Sasha was actually about to say something, she just shoves it away like before and literally runs away from the truth, and nearly loses her life because of it. Another moment that I found very compelling for Sasha's character was from the events of the Third Temple. It's in this episode that we see a flashback to a time where Sasha did genuinely care about her friends, and didn't value control over them, and later into the episode that she still is determined to fight for the sake of her friends. But it's shown towards the end of the episode that all this was simply an act so that her and Grime would have a way into Notopia to threaten the king. But it's during this moment of revelation to the audience that we also get another compelling moment for Sasha.
Of course I haven't forgotten, and I'm pretty sure they bought my act back there. Hook, line, and sinker.
Good, because the things we've set into motion cannot be stopped.
Through my personal experience in editing and writing, to me, 1 second can speak volumes for a story, and that 1 second to me was the shot of Sasha making the face of questioning herself. We know up to this point that Sasha wants to take over Andreas to rule Amphibia as a way to have control, like how she had control of her friendship with Anne and Marcy. But from this one moment of Sasha having a sign of a reflection, it just makes her a lot more compelling since everything she's done before this has been for her motive of overruling this new world. But this one look tells us, the audience, that there's maybe still that part of her thinking she doesn't want to do this. That part of her thinking that she still doesn't want to lose or betray her friends, which continues on up until the finale of the season. The big episode that really solidified my love for Sasha's growth and character this season was the episode Battle of the Bands. This episode revolves around the girls having one last moment together as friends in Amphibia. Amphibia before they head back to Andrews to send them home. So they decide to celebrate by putting together a band as one last hurrah. However, Sasha continues to express that part of her always wanted to be a troll at everything, including her friends. But she's grown enough in her time here that she actually recognizes this fact, and as a way to keep her friends happy, she willingly backs away so that Anne and Marcy can be happy. So as a way to have the feeling of still being a troll but not hurting others, she finds Toady, the small troll that seems to have never done anything for himself. Sasha eventually enjoys this control that she has over him, almost a bit too much. When she asks Toady about why he doesn't state his own feelings, he replies with something that unintentionally hits Sasha hard.
My point is, most people don't realize just how fun it can be to support someone you really care about.
Huh. Well, thanks for that perspective, you weird little butler frog.
We then finally build up to the finale of the episode, and we see how Sasha took those words to heart. When she sees her friends on stage and realizes just how happy they are to be themselves, while not being pressured by her influence, she smiles. The first actual, real, and genuine smile that we've seen from her in the series, and it's towards her friends, realizing that they're finally happy. To add on to the realization that she has, Sasha does what I consider the best character development moment in the series. She forgets about having her own act and is there for her friends the moment they need her. She could have stuck to her plan and played her own act to be in the spotlight, or she could have come out during that same moment and stole the show and played her own song. But no, she comes out and supports her friends as she finally realizes that she doesn't need to be in charge to have the friendship she's always wanted. Sasha in the previous season just didn't seem to have the development that she needed to be an interesting antagonist to go up against our protagonist, or to just be an interesting character and overarching story of the show. So to have this new insight into her feelings and overall just spending more time with Sasha and showing us that there's more to her than meets the eye, I hate to say it, but in this season, Sasha actually felt like a character. As stated in my season 1 video, I didn't think the finale for that season was bad, it's just that it didn't really have the build up that it needed to make it feel super impactful or grand in the journey to reach it. In season 1, it felt like we were just hanging around waiting for something to happen, but now with season 2, this finale was definitely built up well, and is still considered by some people to be the best episode of the series. This is probably the case because everything that's occurred throughout the season has slowly been inching to what this finale had in store. There was just so much to this episode to make it what it is. Sasha's betrayal for friends, Marcy's heartbreaking confession that she's the reason they're so far from home, and Andrew's big reveal of his plans to our protagonist, which I actually love so much that I made a whole separate video looking over it. Go check it out if you want. But of course, I just have to talk about Anne's awakening. What can I say that hasn't already been said about this moment? It was perfect for Anne's character, the music that went alongside was just phenomenal, and the entire sequence of her fighting has some of the best animation the show has to offer. But the cherry on top that just makes me love this finale is that one particular moment that actually got me to do something that I haven't done towards fiction in over 5 years. I cried. And if you've seen this episode already, I think you already know what that moment is.
I just need to...
Now look what you've made me do.
I'm sorry for everything.
Marcy!
There's nothing really needs to be said about what makes this moment what it is. The editing to emphasize the blade that pierced Marcy's and the viewer's heart, the gut-wrenching delivery of Marcy's final line of the season, all the while the entire scene is shrouded in silence to make it all the more impactful. It is haunting. And then in the very next scene, we see Anne make it back home, and we see the infamous text, end of part 2. This to me is a perfect cliffhanger to get the audience more hyped than ever for a show's future. Because not only have you, supposedly, killed a character that was the heart of the season and we come to love our journey, but also tease that the show is going to go in a completely different direction from here. The build up of the entirety of the season for this moment, for this finale, unlike season 1, felt completely worth it, and it couldn't get us more excited for where it could go. Season 2 of Amphibia was, for lack of a better word, a wild yet fun ride. So with all the new plot threads that have been introduced, new challenges for our heroes to face, and to leave it off on that crazy cliffhanger that was True Colors, on top of having an end credit scene to tease what's to come, the hype was bigger than ever for what the next season of Amphibia had in store, and I couldn't wait to dive in. Now, I know I probably just pissed off a lot of people with that joke, but let me elaborate. I definitely had my hopes up going into Season 3 when it came out after getting off the wild ride that was Season 2. But the more and more I got into it, along with the more and more I got into writing the script, it kinda seemed like it had a lot of similar problems to Season 1. I'm gonna make another video discussing Season 3 when it ends, talking about what makes it great, but also flawed, or I'm just gonna do an entire retrospective of the show and talk about it then. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But future insight aside, I'm still really glad with how Season 2 turned out. The character arcs are more interesting, there was so much to offer in this new world, and they put the focus on the overarching story that they really want to tell. If I had to put all my thoughts about this season into one phrase, it would be this. It felt like the show was finally what it wanted to be. So with all this praise of Season 2 that I've gone over, can I finally recommend this show to anyone now? Well, with a catch. As much as I wish I could just tell people to skip Season 1 with how long it is, I still think it's necessary to go through since there are things brought up to Season 2 that refer to certain events in Season 1. Overall, I would give Amphibia Season 2 an 8.5 out of 10. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. There are still some episodes I feel like that are just there to stretch out the story. The humor can still be a bit hit or miss sometimes, but that's just typical in the genre. And there could be some moments with the characters where they kind of feel out of character. But overall, I'm glad with all the new additions and changes they've done compared to the first season. As of the time of writing this, we have yet to witness the big endgame of Season 3, and I have some high hopes for what I want to see from it. But without seeing it beforehand, I would dare say Season 2 was the peak of the show. And that's why I think Amphibia Season 2 redeemed the series.